The air above Laredo, Texas burned like an open wound. It was the kind of heat that stripped color from the sky, leaving only light and silence. Dust hung in the air, caught in the stillness of an afternoon that felt like it had forgotten to move. At the edge of town, near the Rio Grande, a diner sat abandoned, its paint peeled, its sign half missing, Maria's Place. Inside, a woman sat alone in a cracked vinyl booth, staring at the empty road through streaked windows. Her name was Isabel Crane, and she'd stopped believing in fear a long time ago. 2 years earlier, she'd had a life, a husband, a home, a name people trusted. Then the cartel had taken all of it. They'd taken her husband for something he'd seen and left her alive only because they thought it would hurt more that way. Did. Now she was a ghost who still had to eat. The waitress slid a coffee across the table. You waiting on someone? Isabel's lips curved faintly. Not anymore. The waitress nodded, used to that kind of answer in a town like this. The bell above the door chimed. Isabel didn't look up right away. She didn't need to. The way the air changed was enough. The laughter outside died. The hum of conversation at the counter faded to silence. Someone powerful had just entered the room. He walked in slowly, like a man who didn't hurry for anyone. He wore a gray suit that didn't belong in a border diner, his dark hair slicked back, his steps measured. A gold ring gleamed on his finger, catching the light each time he moved. Emilio Vargas. The name traveled through whispers before it ever reached her. The cartel lord who built his empire from the ashes of others. The man whose word could close a city or bury a family. He sat 2 booths away, his back to the wall, his men spreading out quietly near the door. And then, inevitably, his eyes found hers. Senora, he said, his voice deep, smooth, unhurried. You're sitting in my spot. She lifted her gaze slowly, meeting his without flinching. I don't see your name on it. A ripple of tension moved through the room. His men exchanged glances. No one spoke to Vargas like that. Emilio's mouth curved into a small smile. Not afraid? I don't have enough left to be, she said simply. He studied her, his expression unreadable. What's your name? Does it matter? It will. She pushed her coffee aside, rising from the booth. You can have the seat. I'm finished. But as she moved past him, he spoke again, quietly. You were married once. She froze. He tilted his head, watching her reaction. To a man named Thomas Crane. Worked for customs enforcement. Went missing 2 years ago. Her pulse hammered in her ears. How do you know that? He leaned back, his gaze still on her. Because your husband wasn't taken by the cartel, mi amor. He was working for us. The words hit like a blade. She turned, face pale, voice low. You're lying. Emilio's smile didn't reach his eyes. Am I? She stared at him, searching for the telltale flicker of deceit. There was none. His calm was absolute. I don't believe you. Then don't, he said, shrugging. But if you want proof, meet me tomorrow. Midnight, the dock south of Highway 83. Why would I do that? He stood, buttoning his jacket. Because you've spent 2 years hating a ghost. And I can show you the man who killed him. She felt the floor tilt beneath her. And what do you get out of it? He smiled faintly. Maybe I like the company of people who've lost everything. They have nothing left to betray. He turned to leave, his men following silently behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back. Midnight, he said again. Don't be late! When he was gone, the diner felt smaller. The other patrons slowly exhaled, glancing at Isabel as if expecting her to vanish. But she didn't. She sat back down, her hands trembling around her untouched coffee. The name Thomas Crane echoed in her mind, twisting into something raw. 2 years of silence. 2 years of imagining what they'd done to him. And now, the man responsible, or pretending to be, wanted to meet her. She didn't sleep that night. The dock stretched along the Rio Grande like broken ribs, wood warped from sun and age. Midnight came quietly, the river whispering in the dark. Isabel stood alone, the wind pulling at her hair, her jacket clutched tight. She'd brought a gun. She wasn't planning to use it unless she had to. Headlights appeared down the road. A black SUV rolled to a stop, engine purring low. Emilio Vargas stepped out alone. His suit jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms. Even in the dark, his presence filled the space. You came, he said. You knew I would, she answered. He smiled faintly. Curiosity is stronger than fear. She kept her distance. You said you had proof. He nodded toward the SUV. It's in the back. Show me. He opened the door. Inside lay a file, old photographs, documents, a stack of printed emails. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Her husband's. Her throat tightened. Where did you get these? Your husband was running information, Emilio said. Names, dates, routes. For both sides. He thought he could play the D and us against each other. It didn't end well. You're lying, she whispered. I don't lie when the truth hurts more. She flipped through the papers, hands shaking. Each one screamed betrayal, transactions, surveillance notes, shipments. Her husband's signature at the bottom of every page. Her voice broke. He worked for you. Emilio's gaze softened, almost kind. He worked for himself. Until someone sold him out. She looked up sharply. Who? Emilio paused. Someone inside my own circle. Someone who thought killing him would send a message to me. And you expect me to care? She said bitterly. No, he said, stepping closer. I expect you to help me find who did it. She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. You want me to help you? Yes, and why would I ever do that? He met her eyes. Because they're coming for you next, her breath caught. What? The same man who ordered your husband's death doesn't leave loose ends. You've been watched for months. Why should I believe you? Emilio took another step forward, his voice low, steady. Because I'm the one who's been keeping you alive. She froze. You? He nodded once. You think the police never found you because they forgot? They didn't. I erased you. New name, new address. You've been living under my shadow without even knowing it. Her mind spun. Why? Because you were innocent, he said. And because he loved you. Her voice cracked. You don't know what love is. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But I know what debt is. And you're the only person left who can help me make this right. She stared at him, the river wind cutting cold across her face. What do you want from me? I want your eyes, he said softly. The nurse's eyes. You notice what others don't. There's something in those files that doesn't fit, and I can't see it. She hesitated. Torn between rage and the smallest flicker of something else, curiosity. Maybe. Finally, she whispered, and if I help you? His expression darkened. Then I'll give you the name of the man who pulled the trigger. Lightning flashed across the border sky. Thunder rolling far away. She looked down at the gun in her hand, then back at him. Midnight, she said quietly, was a bad time for confessions. Emilio smiled, faint and dangerous. It's the only time they matter. When she drove away, the rain started, a slow, relentless drizzle that smeared the lights of the border. In the distance, in her lap lay the file. Heavy as a heartbeat, and inside it, tucked between the pages, was a photograph she hadn't noticed before. Her husband, standing beside another man smiling. A man with dark eyes and a faint scar along his jaw. Emilio Vargas. Her hands went cold. The truth hit like a bullet. He hadn't just known Thomas Crane, he'd loved him once like a brother. And that meant whatever this was. It wasn't about redemption. It was about revenge. The rain didn't stop for 2 days. It fell in long silvery lines over Laredo, turning the desert roads into rivers of mud and washing the world clean in every place. Except Isabel's mind. The file Emilio Vargas had given her sat on the small table in her apartment. The paper still damp from the night at the docks. She'd tried to ignore it. Tried to drink enough coffee, smoke enough cigarettes, and keep the television loud, enough to drown out the questions crawling through her head. But it was no use. Her husband's handwriting stared back at her from every page, bold, confident, familiar. The letters twisted into something she no longer recognized. The lies were too neat. The loyalty too perfect. There was something missing. Something deliberate. And that terrified her more than the truth. By the third night, Isabel drove back to the docks. The storm had thinned into a steady drizzle, the air cool against her skin. He was already there. Emilio Vargas leaned against the hood of a black car, rain beating on his coat. He didn't move when she approached, only watched her with that same unsettling calm that seemed to silence the world around him. "You came back," he said softly. "Don't flatter yourself," she replied. "I came for answers." He nodded once. "Then you're in the right kind of wrong place." "Tell me the truth this time," she said. "All of it," he gestured toward the car. "Get in." "Not here." She hesitated, then opened the door. The leather was cold. The smell of tobacco and rain clung to everything. They drove in silence for a long time, the city lights fading behind them, the road narrowing into an unmarked path that led toward the desert. Finally, Isabel asked, "How did you know Thomas?" Emilio's eyes stayed on the road. "He came to me 8 years ago. Said he had information that could destroy a rival. He wanted protection for his unit, for you. I gave it to him. In return, he gave me access to the DEA's internal schedules." Her stomach twisted. "You used him." He glanced at her. "He knew exactly who I was. That doesn't make it better." "No," he said quietly. "But it makes it true." She looked away, anger and grief burning together in her chest. "And you expect me to believe you had nothing to do with his death?" "I didn't kill him. Then who did?" Emilio slowed the car, his voice low. "That's what we're going to find out." They stopped at an abandoned ranch south of Bruni, a place swallowed by wind and dust. The main house leaned under the weight of the storm, windows boarded, paint long gone. Inside, candles flickered across the kitchen table. Maps, ledgers, photographs, dozens of them covered the walls. It wasn't just an investigation. It was an obsession. Isabel walked to the nearest photo. Her husband stood beside another man she didn't recognize, blonde, clean-cut, wearing a tactical vest with D insignia. "Who's this?" she asked. "Agent Daniel Price," Emilio said. "Your husband's handler. He's the one who brought him to me." "And he's the one who sold him out," she said flatly. Emilio looked at her, something like approval flickering in his eyes. "You're fast. Not fast enough to save him." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You couldn't have." Price was working both sides, feeding information to me, the D, and a third party who paid better than both. She turned. "A third party?" He nodded. "Someone inside my organization. Someone I trusted." The word trusted came out sharp, almost bitter. Isabel studied his face, the flicker of regret behind the composure, the faint tremor in his hands when he said the word someone. "You mean family," she said quietly. His eyes met hers. "Blood doesn't make it easier." A flash of lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the room. "That's why you came to me," she said. "You think I can help you find the traitor?" He gave a slow nod. "You see details, patterns, the kind of truth that hides in plain sight. Your husband had it too." She frowned. "Don't compare me to him." "I'm not," he said. "You're stronger." The way he said it calm certain made something inside her twist. It wasn't a compliment. It was a diagnosis. Hours passed. They sat at the table, the candlelight flickering between them. The storm moving across the desert in low rumbles. Isabel sorted through the files again, photographs of shipments, ledgers marked with coded numbers, lists of names. And there it was. The detail she couldn't shake. The same number repeated across 3 different pages. 8837. It appeared beside her husband's name, beside the D case file, and again in one of Emilio's transaction ledgers. She looked up. "What is 8837? Emilio's expression changed. He reached for the page, scanning it. Then quietly, "It's not a code. It's a date. August 8th, 2037? She asked. "That's 15 years from now." He shook his head. "No, it's a shipping date. August 8th, 2017. She blinked. "That was the day my husband disappeared." "Yes," he said. "And the last time I saw him alive." Her pulse quickened. "You said you didn't kill him." "I didn't," Emilio said. "But I watched him die." The words cut through the storm. He leaned back, eyes dark, voice quieter now. "He came to the border to meet Price. There was supposed to be an exchange information for protection. I was supposed to guard the handoff. When I got there, the truck was already burning. Thomas was inside. Why didn't you tell me?" She whispered. "Because the man who lit the match worked for me," Emilio said. "And I've been hunting him ever since." Isabel stared at him, a mix of fury and disbelief. So you're saying you've been chasing your own ghost for 2 years? He smiled faintly. You're starting to understand. She slammed her hands on the table. You're insane, Vargas. You think you can fix this? You think I'll help you? He didn't move, didn't raise his voice. You already are. The realization hit her he hadn't come to her for her eyes or her insight. He'd come because she was bait. Whoever killed your husband, he said softly, is still watching you. And when they come for you, I'll be waiting for them. Her stomach dropped. You used me. I'm protecting you. You're using me, she snapped. His jaw tightened. Maybe it's both. Lightning flashed again, thunder cracking overhead. For a moment, the world lit white, and in that brief light, she saw something that made her freeze. In the corner of the room, on the map wall. One photo was circled in red. It was her. A surveillance photo. Taken days ago. Her blood ran cold. You've been following me. He didn't deny it. Since when? She demanded. The night of the diner, he said. Before that too. Why? His answer came low, almost a confession. Because I wanted to see what kind of woman walks straight into the lion's mouth and doesn't flinch. Her breath trembled. And what did you decide? Emilio stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his breath, the weight of his gaze. That you're the kind who'll either save me, he murmured, or kill me. The air between them was electric anger and attraction colliding in a way that felt dangerously alive. She met his eyes. If I kill you, she whispered, you'll deserve it. He smiled faintly. Probably. Then the sound came tires on gravel outside, too many for a quiet road like this. Emilio's expression hardened. They're here. Who? The men who burned your husband's body. Her stomach twisted. You said they were dead. I said I was hunting them, he said, cocking his gun. I didn't say I'd caught them. The headlights cut across the windows, slicing through the storm. Stay behind me, he ordered. Like hell. The first shot shattered the window. Emilio turned, firing into the dark. Isabel dropped behind the table, glass raining over her. More gunfire. More shouting. The sound of footsteps closing in. Vargas. A voice yelled from outside. You can't protect her forever. Emilio glanced at her, eyes fierce. Don't move. He kicked open the door and stepped into the rain, the thunder swallowing the sound of his gun, and Isabel realized too late that every secret she'd just uncovered was about to burn with the rest of the world. The storm swallowed everything sound, shape, sense. It was as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Rain hammered the roof of the old ranch house. Glass lay scattered across the floor, and gunfire split the night open like lightning. Isabel crouched low behind the overturned table, the smell of gunpowder sharp in her throat. Her ears rang with each shot. Outside, Emilio Vargas moved through the rain like a shadow. Each muzzle flash lit his face for a split second, jaw clenched. Eyes cold, precise. 2 bodies fell before she even realized he'd moved. Then silence. The storm roared on, but the shooting stopped. Isabel's pulse thundered in her ears. She gripped the pistol he'd given her, her hands slick with sweat and rain. Then dashed footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Emilio? She whispered. No answer. The door creaked open. A man stepped inside, tall, broad, wearing a soaked black jacket. His face was half hidden beneath the shadow of his hood. But when he looked up, she saw it. The scar. The one from the photo. The man who'd killed her husband. He smiled. Mrs. Crane, you're harder to find than I expected. Her blood went cold. Who are you? Call me Santiago, he said. Emilio and I have been trying to meet for a long time. She aimed the gun at him, her hands trembling. You stay right there. He chuckled softly, rain dripping from his chin. You think I came here to hurt you? That's exactly what I think. His voice softened. Then you still don't understand what your husband was part of. I know enough. No, Santiago said, stepping closer. You know what Emilio wants you to know. He tells half the story and lets you fill in the rest. That's how he works. She shook her head. He showed me proof files, names, files he forged. Santiago interrupted. Your husband didn't work for him. He worked against him. Her stomach twisted. You're lying. Santiago tilted his head. Then ask yourself something. If Emilio was your husband's friend, why did he watch him burn? Before she could respond, a gunshot shattered the back window. Santiago spun, hit the floor, returning fire instantly. Emilio was back. Get down. He barked, diving through the door. Santiago crouched behind the wall, gun aimed toward the window. Always late, old friend. Emilio's voice came low, dangerous. I should have killed you in Monterey. You tried, Santiago said, grinning through the blood on his lip. Didn't work. Isabel pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. What's happening? Emilio glanced at her. Get out. I'm not leaving. Go. She ran toward the back door as the house erupted in chaos. Gunfire. Glass, thunder. Outside, she stumbled into the rain, breath ragged. The ground was slick, the air thick with smoke. She could hear their voices inside, sharp and fast in Spanish brothers turned enemies. Each word edged with hate. Then she heard it, a single word that froze her blood. Hermano. Brother. She turned back toward the house. Eyes wide, Santiago wasn't just his enemy. He was his blood. Inside, Emilio stood over Santiago, gun trained on his chest. You should have stayed dead. Santiago spat blood, smiling up at him. You killed father. I owed you the same. Emilio's jaw tightened. You burned the wrong man. He wasn't innocent, Santiago hissed. He was working with the D to destroy us. He wanted out. He wanted peace. Emilio roared. You took everything from him and from her. Peace doesn't exist for men like us, Santiago said softly. You taught me that. Emilio's hand trembled. You were my brother. Santiago's smile faded. I still am. And then he moved. A flash of steel, a knife from his boot, the blade catching the light. Emilio fired once. Then twice. Santiago fell backward, crashing through a chair. The knife clattered to the floor. Isabel ran in just as the thunder broke overhead. She stopped in the doorway, the sight freezing her in place. Emilio stood over his brother's body, blood on his face, smoke curling from the gun in his hand. For a long moment he didn't move. Didn't speak. Then he dropped the weapon and fell to his knees beside Santiago. Why? He whispered. Santiago's breath came shallow, the rain mixing with blood. Because you loved her. Emilio's head snapped up. What? Santiago coughed, blood staining his teeth. I saw it. The way you looked at her. The nurse. The innocent. Father said she would ruin you. He coughed again, weaker now. He was right. His eyes glazed, the last breath leaving him in a quiet sigh. Emilio sat there, rain dripping from his hair, his hands stained red. Isabel approached slowly. He was your brother. He didn't look up. Not anymore. Her voice shook. What did he mean? What did he mean about me? Emilio finally met her eyes, and she saw it then. The truth he'd been hiding since the first night. Your husband didn't just work for me, he said quietly. He worked because of you. She frowned. Because of me? He nodded. He made a deal. His freedom for your life. He agreed to feed information to my father in exchange for protection. But when he tried to back out, when he tried to run, the order came down. Her throat tightened. And you carried it out. No, his voice broke. I was supposed to. But I couldn't. Then who did? He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the body on the floor. Santiago. The word hung heavy in the air, like the moment before a confession becomes a wound. Isabel took a step back, trembling. All this time you let me believe the cartel killed him. I was the cartel, Emilio said, voice hoarse. There was no way to tell you without losing you too. You lost me the moment you lied. He stood, blood and rain dripping from his hands. I lied to keep you alive. She turned away, tears burning her eyes. I didn't need saving. You did, he said softly. You just didn't want it from me. Lightning flashed again, painting him in white light, beautiful, broken, human. And in that flicker, she saw something she didn't expect. Regret so deep it almost looked like love. I'll finish this, he said, his voice barely audible. Then you'll never see me again. Emilio, but he was already walking into the rain. The gun in his hand again, his silhouette fading into the storm. Isabel stood there in the ruins of the house. The thunder rumbling over the desert. The taste of truth bitter on her tongue. She looked down at Santiago's body and saw something clutched in his hand. A photograph. Her dot taken from across the street. Recent dot, and written on the back. In a language she could barely read but understood perfectly, were the words, La duda no ha terminado. The debt is not over. She closed her eyes, the storm swallowing her whole dot, because suddenly she understood this wasn't over. The secret wasn't that her husband had died for Emilio's sins. It was that he might not have died at all. The morning after the storm. The air in South Texas was still and heavy, like the world hadn't decided whether to keep turning. The house smelled of wet wood and gunpowder. The blood on the floor had already started to dry. Isabel stood at the window, arms crossed over her chest, staring at the long stretch of dirt road that disappeared into the desert. Emilio Vargas had vanished hours ago, leaving only silence and Santiago's body behind. She hadn't slept. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again, Emilio kneeling beside his brother, the rain mixing with blood, the truth spilling out like confession. He'd loved her husband. He'd betrayed him. And he'd lied to her from the moment they met. But Santiago's final words kept echoing in her mind. The debt is not over. She turned toward the table where she'd spread out everything she could salvage from the wreckage, the files, the photographs, the burned fragments of Emilio's maps. In the center lay the photograph she'd found in Santiago's hand. Her own face circled in red ink. Someone else had been watching, and whoever they weren't done. By midday, she'd buried Santiago behind the house. No headstone. No name. Just earth and wind. Then she packed what little she had into her truck and drove. The road out of Bruni was a strip of heat-shimmering asphalt, and the desert stretched wide and endless on both sides. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. She reached the outskirts of Corpus Christi by sunset. The ocean smell hit her like memory, salt, rust, freedom. She parked behind an old warehouse and killed the engine, exhaustion making her hands shake. She thought she was alone, until she saw him. Emilio Vargas leaned against a pillar at the edge of the dock, his shirt stained with dried blood. His gaze fixed on the horizon. He didn't look surprised to see her. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Neither should you. He turned to her then, his expression unreadable. You followed me. I buried your brother. A flicker of pain crossed his face. You shouldn't have done that. Someone had to. They stood in silence for a moment, the gulls crying somewhere over the waves. Finally, Isabel said, Santiago wasn't the end of this, was he? Emilio shook his head. No, he was just another link. To what? He hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket, a small black flash drive. To the truth. She eyed it warily. You still think that word means anything to you? He smiled faintly. Not to me. But maybe to you. He handed it to her. Everything I have left is on this drive: emails, transfers, photographs. Names that'll end me and everyone who's ever stood beside me. Why give it to me? Because I don't trust anyone else, he said simply. And because the man who killed your husband wasn't Santiago. Her blood went cold. I said he burned the body. I didn't say it was Thomas inside. The words hit her like a punch. She shook her head. That's not possible. Emilio's voice stayed calm, but she saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He was taken before the truck burned. Santiago's orders were to make it look like a death, not a disappearance. Why? Because your husband had something they needed, something he stole from me. Her pulse quickened. What? A list, he said. Every American contact tied to the Vega network. Politicians, officers, bankers. It's worth more than any of us combined. She stared at him, disbelief and hope clashing in her chest. You think he's alive? Emilio didn't answer. Say it, she demanded. He met her gaze. I think there's a chance. Her knees felt weak. Then why haven't you gone after him? Because the man who took him, Emilio said quietly, is the same man who wants you dead. Who? He hesitated. Then Colonel Victor Lazaro. He runs the government's anti-cartel task force. But he's not cleaning the system, he's replacing it. Your husband worked for him before he disappeared. Isabel felt the room tilt. You're saying Thomas was part of Lazaro's operation? He was his inside man, Emilio said. And when he realized what Lazaro really was, he tried to expose him. That's when I got involved. She laughed, bitter. So now you're telling me you're the hero? He smiled faintly. No, I'm the weapon he created and lost control of. She looked down at the flash drive in her hand, its weight heavy as guilt. And what am I supposed to do with this? Find him before Lazaro does. Her chest tightened. You think I can just walk into a federal network and… You don't have to, Emilio interrupted. You just have to survive long enough for me to get you across the border. Her eyes narrowed. Across? He nodded. To El Paso. I have someone there who can help. She hesitated. Why help me now? His answer came after a long silence. Because I owe your husband more than I can repay. Because you killed him, she said. Because I didn't, he replied softly. And because you still believe I might have. They left that night. The highway was dark, the world stripped to shadows and headlights. Emilio drove in silence, one hand steady on the wheel, the other occasionally touching the wound at his side. Isabel sat beside him, the flash drive in her lap. The hum of the tires filling the space between them. After an hour, she finally spoke. When this is over, what happens to you? He glanced at her, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Men like me don't get endings. We just stop being useful. She turned to the window, her reflection pale against the glass. You talk like you're already dead. He laughed softly. Maybe I am. But there was something in his tone, something almost tender, that made her wonder if death, for him, was a relief. They drove through the night until they reached the outskirts of Marfa, the stars sharp and cold above them. Emilio pulled over beside a line of old rail cars. This is where we switch vehicles, he said. After this, no one can trace us. She nodded, stepping out into the chill air, but as he opened the trunk to grab the bags, a gun clicked behind them. Step away from the car. The voice was familiar, smooth, controlled. Emilio froze. Slowly he turned. Standing in the shadows, dressed in a military coat, was Colonel Victor Lazaro. His pistol gleamed in the moonlight. I knew you couldn't resist playing savior, Lazaro said. Always trying to rewrite the story that made you a monster. Emilio's tone stayed even. I didn't expect you to do your own hunting. Lazaro smiled. Some debts are personal. He glanced at Isabel. And you must be the widow. Her voice was steady. Not anymore. His smile widened. Brave, I see why he liked you. Where is he? She demanded. Where's Thomas? Lazaro looked almost amused. You think he's alive? Emilio's eyes flicked toward her just for an instant. It was enough. Lazaro chuckled. Oh, you didn't tell her. Tell me what? Isabel asked. Emilio's silence said everything. Lazaro stepped forward, his words like a knife twisting slow. Your husband isn't missing, Signora. He's working for me. Her breath caught. No, Emilio's jaw tightened. You're lying. Am I? Lazaro asked, pulling a small device from his pocket. He pressed play. Thomas's voice filled the cold air. The deal stands. I'll keep her quiet. Just make sure Vargas dies first. Isabel's vision blurred, her breath catching in her throat. The voice was unmistakable. Emilio took a step forward. He's manipulating the tape. Believe what you want, Lazaro sighed, leveling the gun at him. But you won't be around to prove it. The shot cracked across the night. Emilio stumbled, clutching his shoulder, falling to one knee. Emilio! Isabel screamed, lunging forward. Lazaro turned the gun toward her. I liked you better when you didn't know how the world worked. Before he could pull the trigger, Emilio surged up, bloodied, furious, and tackled him into the dirt. The gun skidded away. They fought, brutal and close, fists and fury under the moonlight. Isabel dove for the gun, hands shaking, the flash drive slipping from her pocket. She picked it up, then froze. It had cracked open. Inside, not metal. Not memory. A folded photograph. Thomas, smiling, standing beside Lazaro, her heart shattered. She looked up just as Lazaro swung a broken bottle toward Emilio's throat. She fired. The bullet hit him square in the chest. Lazaro dropped. The sound swallowed by the desert. Emilio turned to her, breathing hard, blood staining his shirt. You, he began, then stopped. Her hands were trembling. It's true, isn't it? My husband, he betrayed us both. Emilio nodded slowly. He sold me to the D, and he sold you to save himself. She lowered the gun, tears cutting through the dust on her cheeks. So what now? He stepped closer, reaching out, brushing his fingers against hers. Now, he said softly, you stop being someone's collateral. She met his eyes. And you? I finished what I started. He looked back toward Lazaro's body, then up at the horizon where the first light of dawn was breaking. The night was over. But the war wasn't, because somewhere out there, in the distance between truth and love, one ghost was still walking free. The dawn rose cold and pale over Marfa, painting the desert in ghostlight. Wind hissed across the sand, carrying the scent of cordite and blood. The world looked emptied out, all noise stripped away. All color drained except for the soft rust red of the dirt road where 3 lives had just changed forever. Emilio. Vargas lay half-propped against the bumper of the truck, his breathing shallow. Blood darkened his sleeve, but his eyes were still sharp, still watchful. Isabel knelt beside him, pressing her scarf against the wound, her hands steady only because she refused to let them shake. Don't you dare die now, she murmured. He gave a faint, crooked smile. I've heard worse prayers. She looked toward the horizon. Colonel Lazaro's body lay a few yards away, the sand already starting to swallow him. The sun burned low above it like a warning. Tell me it's over, she whispered. Emilio shook his head slowly. It's never over. Not with men like him. There's always someone waiting to fill the void. Then we disappear, she said. We take the files and we vanish. He closed his eyes briefly. You still believe in vanishing? I believe in survival. He chuckled once, the sound breaking into a cough. Then you're stronger than me. She didn't answer. She just kept her hand against the wound until his breathing steadied. They burned the truck and the bodies before the sun reached full height. The smoke drifted over the desert like a signal no one would answer. By mid-morning, they were in an old sedan headed north, the flash drive sealed inside a tin under the passenger seat. The road wound through mesas and dry riverbeds, mile after mile of empty country. Isabel drove. Emilio watched the world pass through the cracked window. His reflection ghosted against it. After a long silence, he said, You could leave me at the border, cross into New Mexico, start over, and let you bleed out on the side of the road. He smiled faintly. Wouldn't be the first time. She glanced at him. You think this is some kind of penance? Maybe it's all I have left. The sky widened above them, a hard blue that felt infinite. She didn't look away from the horizon when she said, You saved me. He turned his head slightly. No, you saved yourself. I just happened to be standing nearby. They reached Santa Fe by dusk. The city glowed soft and golden, the streets wet from an afternoon rain. Emilio directed her toward a run-down adobe house on the edge of town. This was one of Thomas's safe houses, he said quietly. The name hung between them like smoke. Isabel hesitated at the door. You're sure? He nodded. If he's alive, there'll be a sign. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old paper. A single lamp sat on a table beside a stack of letters. Isabel picked one up. The handwriting was unmistakable. Thomas Crane. Her knees went weak. The letter was short. Isabel, if you find this, it means the storm caught me. Don't believe what they tell you. The truth isn't who we were, it's what we became to survive. Find Vargas. He's the only one who knows what I did and why I had to do it. I'm sorry for everything. Her hands trembled as she lowered the paper. He was here, she whispered. Emilio's gaze softened. Then he's still alive. She turned to him. He says you know what he did. Emilio exhaled slowly. He took the list. The real one. Every name, politicians, cartel chiefs. Everyone feeding off the same blood. He wanted to trade it for our freedom. Our? She asked. He met her eyes. He wanted to save you. He came to me the night before he disappeared. Asked me to protect you if things went wrong. I thought he was bargaining for himself. Her voice broke. You kept your promise. I tried. He sat down heavily on the edge of the table, fatigue washing over him. When Lazaro found out, he needed a scapegoat. Santiago burned the truck. They let me think Thomas was dead so I'd keep chasing ghosts instead of truth. She sank into the chair opposite him. So what now? We go after him. Emilio looked at her, something like sadness flickering behind his eyes. He doesn't want to be found. How do you know? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a single photograph. Thomas, standing in front of a helicopter, alive, older, a scar cutting through his jawline. On the back, in block letters, was written, "Don't come for me." Isabel's breath caught. Where did you get this? Delivered this morning, Emilio said. Before we left Bruni. Her voice was barely a whisper. He knew we were coming. Emilio nodded, and he wanted to stop us. Night settled deep and cold. They sat by the small fire in the courtyard, the letter between them. The sound of the city distant and soft. Isabel stared into the flames. All this time I thought I was a widow. You were, Emilio said gently. Just not in the way you thought. She looked up at him, tears glinting in the firelight. Why didn't you walk away when you could have? He smiled, tired. Because I wanted to see what it looked like. Someone choosing to live. For a long time they said nothing. The fire cracked, the wind moved through the trees, and the city lights blinked like stars below them. Finally, she reached across the space between them and took his hand. You think redemption's real? He looked at their joined hands, then at her. I think it's rare. And I think sometimes it doesn't belong to us. Then who does it belong to? He met her gaze. The ones who keep going anyway. The quiet stretched long enough for the moment to become something fragile and beautiful. Then a knock sounded at the door. Isabel tensed. Emilio reached for his gun, his body instinctively sharp again. She opened the door slowly. A young man stood there. His clothes dusty, his face drawn but alive. For a second, Isabel thought she was seeing a ghost. Thomas? She whispered. He nodded once. I didn't want you to come. But you did. She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Emilio stood behind her, silent, unreadable. Thomas looked past her, eyes meeting Emilio's. You kept her safe. I tried, Emilio said. Thomas's gaze hardened. Then do one more thing for me. Walk away. Emilio's jaw tightened. And leave you to finish what you started? Thomas shook his head. You don't understand. Lazaro was never the head. He was just the mouthpiece. There's another man higher hidden. He'll come for both of you. Then we face him, Isabel said. Thomas's voice softened. You don't have to. Emilio stepped forward. Yes, we do. The two men stood face to face, one ghost, one sinner, both bound by the same woman and the same sin. Finally, Thomas nodded once. Then may God forgive us all. He turned and walked into the darkness before she could stop him. Emilio watched him go, then looked at Isabel. If he's right, this isn't the end. She wiped her tears, her voice steady now. Then it's the beginning. He smiled faintly. You sound like him. No, she said. I sound like me. The first light of morning broke over the rooftops, pale and new. Isabel stepped out into it, the weight of the flash drive still in her pocket. The future wide and uncertain. Behind her. Emilio Vargas lit a cigarette and watched the sunrise. For the first time in years, he didn't look like a lord. He looked like a man who'd finally remembered how to feel.